there, everybody. Welcome to WIC Live. It is Wednesday. I am Kayla Knierim here with Dan Selke. He's going to tell us everything that you need to know happening already for Game of Thrones season 8. What season are we in? Season 8.
We're both going to talk about it.
Season.
Yeah, and all things Song of Ice and Fire, all things Game of Thrones in general. Yeah, let's jump right into it, Kayla. We're going to bring you the news that you can use and to later read more chapters of A Game of Thrones, chapter by chapter, in our ongoing series, A Song of Dan and Josh, where we analyze books.
How'd the first one go?
I thought really well. Did you watch it?
I was listening in the background. I didn't go back and watch it.
It was fun. I think
I'm sure you're getting a lot more intellectual discussion with Josh.
But anyway.
Are you enjoying going back through and reading it?
I mean, we only read one chapter, but yeah.
Oh.
I mean, it's, the books are, I mean, it's like any book to show thing. The books are richer, they're longer, there's more there's more meat to kind of sink into. And they're very elegantly written. Yeah, it's fun to see how it informs the show and how it doesn't inform the show. And to just read a good yarn, everybody likes that. But right now we're talking about Game of Thrones, the TV show.
We are.
And Kayla, I'm happy to report that we have the first spoilers of the season.
Can't wait, tell us.
I can't wait. So right now what's happening is the entire cast are in Belfast, Northern Ireland. They're doing a table read of the whole season. Do
fans go and flock to these areas?
Of course they do.
And just kind of hang out and stalk around the city and see where people are eating dinner?
Yeah. There's photos popping up all over of just like, I mean, it's amateur paparazzi is what it is. Because it's not like people are, sometimes that happens.
Dan, how do we send you to Belfast?
Go ahead, do it. I would go to Belfast in a heartbeat.
Let's get you undercover over there.
I mean, because I remember like back in the day, like you would have like, the pictures from People and Us and whatever, and now it's just people taking with their phones, and now just a picture of Kit Harington, Emilia Clarke, and John Bradley, who plays Samus, like at a restaurant, like mid-chew, is just out there on Twitter. And
it'd be cool to live there and be able to see this like happening.
I'm sure it would.
All the time.
I mean, no, but I mean, generally, people are very respectful. They're very nice. People aren't out there to do anything nasty. But the point is, pretty much the entire cast is there right now because they're going to do this big table read, and they have already done it. So somebody knows all the secrets now. It's just a matter of not spilling them. So there have been pictures of people who played Bran, Arya, Sansa, Jon, Daenerys, Sam, Jorah. And there is one picture we're going to talk about. I want to warn everybody who's watching. I was
just going to say, what?
I mean, it's not a huge spoiler. We're not going to spoil anything huge, but we do have the first kind of minor spoiler of the season. Someone was photographed, so if you don't want to know, please close your ears and cover your eyes for approximately 3 minutes and then come back and watch us some more. Okay, 3, 2, 1, spoiler go. Christopher Hivju, who plays Tormund Giantsbane, has been spotted, photographed in Belfast, so he is alive. Tormund Giantsbane, last seen on top of the wall before it was going to tumble down after a dragon torched it, is back for the table read. Also, he was back there just for kicks, which, I wouldn't put it entirely past him.
Jason, Momoa, wasn't he seen with them last year, like, hanging out?
It's not impossible for someone to just...
So this has happened before.
I mean, this is a very specific time. He was seen with everyone else. They're all here for a specific reason. I guess it's possible he could have just been hanging out. I doubt it.
Okay.
I mean, I think it looks like he's there.
I'm going to go with, yes, he's alive.
Oh, do we have a question?
No, it's Julie Davies' birthday.
Is it?
Stop everything.
Should we sing to her?
Why didn't we drink on the show today?
We should have drank on the show today.
Toast to Julie.
Oh, happy birthday, Julie. Really, truly, toast.
Happy birthday, Julie.
How am I going to do it? Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Julie. Happy birthday to you.
Thanks for being our #1 fan.
Thank you very much. I think
Carm's going to be so upset he wasn't here for this.
He is. I think that song is like copywritten or something, so I might have stepped some toes there, but I'm not sure.
Happy birthday?
It's weird. It's a whole other discussion. The point is, Tormund is alive, and it's Julie Davies' birthday, so congratulations on both
Good thing
fronts.
you're a lawyer, Dan.
I mean, if I was a good lawyer, I would have not had us do that. And yes, you are most welcome, Julie. I wish I could see more comments here. Okay. So that's happening, but one thing we can say, it looks like they're going the extra mile this year to prevent huge spoilers. I don't think that's that big. I mean, we already kind of suspect that he was alive. This isn't like a big plot detail, it's the first thing. So I would rather not spoil huge things. Last year, some huge things leaked. Like the entire thing basically leaked ahead of time. What we're hoping
And then we got episodes leaked.
Yes, we're hoping that doesn't. I mean, to me, Kayla, there's like a sweet spot. There's like a spoiler like this that I
want
kind
to
of
know a little, but not too much.
Sort of, yeah. That's kind of how I feel about it.
I want to know the characters that are coming back, but I don't know what's going to happen to them.
Yeah, that will work. Like I want to. I want a little bit. I don't want to know the whole thing, but I like finding out little bits from like a photograph or some kind of intriguing, like, piece of information that's not fully there. It's like half there, so then I get to puzzle out the rest, or I get to try. Mm-hmm. It's like fun, but just having it all handed to me isn't fun. So that's my opinion.
Okay.
Oh, according to Catherine Donnelly, those are her picks of Tormund. Hi from Belfast.
What?
Catherine Donnelly, if you're out there getting picks, good for you. And yes, good for you. Do not let anybody tell you you're spoiling things. It's just you're having fun, you're a fan, you're dedicated, you're resourceful and useful and wonderful.
Thanks for watching the show.
And yeah, thanks for watching the show. And yes, thank you, Catherine. That's pretty awesome. Anyway, so that's happening. But they're cracking down hardcore. We have some examples of. I've talked to a couple people, and they say they're really ratcheting it up this season, even though it was. I wouldn't call it unratcheted before.
Were they making fake scripts last year?
Oh yeah, fake scripts. They were giving them fake names last year in the script, so they wouldn't be able to tell someone to get a hold of the script who was actually the character. They've done this kind of thing before, but this year they're going to go to the next level. We have some testimony from Liam Cunningham, who plays Davos Seaworth. Okay, so his story is he was talking to IGN, I believe, and
Captain John Smith.
Captain John Smith. You know his name right now, don't you?
I do.
Okay. That they all like get the scripts emailed to them or digitally, you know, because they used to do paper scripts, but they stopped that a while ago because anybody can just take those.
Yeah. I have a script from Modern Family. That has nothing to do with our
Expand.
They're just really cool to have. I like having like the.
Like you get it? Did you buy it?
I know. I found it on the street. Yes. So
Really?
that's why they don't do paper scripts anymore, because those things get out.
On the street, just like
Yeah.
lying in the street.
In LA. I mean, I might have been around like a studio or a set or something. I don't know. But yeah, I kept it. I was like, this is really cool.
That is really
It has
cool.
everybody's call times. It has the entire episode. I still have it. I'll have to bring it in. I'll have to find it.
You should do that.
Okay, because we are going to talk about that a little bit next
Does that mean that just like the lady who plays Glory just like was walking by and just dropped it off their shoulder and just kept on walking?
Whose script do I have? I
Sophia
don't know.
Vergara, okay. Anyway, so Liam Cunningham said he got the scripts digitally downloaded, and it was so protected he couldn't even open them, was how bad it's gotten.
But you might have a theory?
Why set me up like that?
Oh, is that, we're not talking about that?
No, we are. I mean, there's...
You just made a point that maybe because he is a little older, he's not as tech savvy as some of the younger kids, and maybe he just didn't know how to get into it, right?
I mean, I have a hard time believing they would give all the actors the scripts in download form and not want them to open them and read them. So maybe it's just that he tried and he couldn't quite figure it out. Because, I mean, I'm sorry.
Or maybe it really is that hard to get into.
I mean, Kayla, like, we have RSN password locks,
We have some
and sometimes
tricky
that
hoops
stumps
to
me.
jump through, yeah.
And if they're doing that kind of high-level security, I wouldn't be surprised if it stumped a couple of the people. Yes, please do, says Karen, I assume, to your script request.
Oh, okay.
We're on it, Karen. But anyway, they're going over the top in that way. They're giving him more protections, because if he couldn't do it this year, it implies he could do it last year, so something changed.
Ah, true. Yes.
I mean, a way of saying that is they're so protected now, not even the actors can read them.
That's crazy.
Until they like get to the table read, which they're doing Sunday and Monday they did it, and I'm sure they read them then.
Okay.
But beyond that, it's just tight as it can be. But, I don't know what that was either. There have often people who are around the sets. Irish Thrones is saying that around the Winterfell set up Money Glass. They're using kind of screens around the thing to block off views from the road, which is new. And they're just going over the top paranoid this year.
Mandy Moore was on the Today Show yesterday, and she said that This Is Us is now having to do stuff like that surrounding Jack's death.
I mean, Stranger Things is having to do stuff like that too. It's a kind of a Game of Thrones. One of the many ways that's contributed, or just
you know you're popular
something.
when.
Yes, people are just looking for spoilers and crowding around your sets. it's been a more and more common thing. But Game of Thrones is definitely the big granddaddy of it.
It's crazy. Yeah, she said they had to drive like 2 hours away. They had the signs for the cast that normally say TIU had to be something else. Like they were trying to throw people off.
Clever. By the way, Sarah asks, is there a release date yet? There is not. We will be all over it when there is. I'm sure they'll put it in like a, I don't know, behind a fire or melt another block of ice. Remember that? God.
What are they going to do this year?
I don't know.
Tell us what you think.
Tell us what you think, definitely.
What?
My question to you is, as it always kind of is all that worth it? Like, is all that extra...
The hype?
No, the security, the screens.
Oh, I thought you meant like telling us when it's gonna
security
air.
procedures, and I mean, obviously that's not worth it. Is all that
Clearly
worth the
they
trouble?
think it is.
I
There must be some crazies just going to great
not
lengths
sure.
to try to, you don't think?
Yeah, I've always said that I think that those resources will be better spent put into the show, because I think folk will find out anyway.
I don't think
And
they're
it's-
sparing expense on any front on this.
No, I mean, for a TV show, it's still a TV show at the end of the day. I mean, there is still a budget. I mean, it still exists. It's not like they have carte blanche to do anything they want. They have a lot of money. They
Yeah.
don't have everything. They don't have all the money. So, and it also takes time organizing that kind of thing. I figure if folks are going to find out anyway, and fans are so smart, okay, they're so smart and they're so resourceful, they will find out. I believe that. I have faith in that. So I figure just ignore that and just make the best show you can. In my opinion, but I'm not at HBO, so I don't get a say.
Yeah, I mean, I get wanting to take precaution, but I don't think doing that is going to affect the quality of the show in any way.
Yeah, and I mean, the show will live on after it's all over, right? And no one's going to care in 20 years whether people 20 years ago didn't know the plot point in episode 3. Who's going to care whether the show is good?
Are they spending massive amounts of money on taking these
I don't know.
precautions? Oh.
One little other cool thing I'll just mention, they're also considering the use of, are Danny and John twins, asked Jess. No, they're aunt and nephew, no. Oh, and Julie Davies asked, are they filming in Iceland this season? We don't know yet. I'm sure we'll find out pretty quickly. They're also using, some fans like to use drones to spy on the set.
Stop. Okay, that's cheating. You
No,
can't do
no,
that.
but hear this. They've considered using trained eagles to intercept the drones and to take them down. That's just cool.
That's a thing?
That's a thing. Go Google that, people.
Can't you just get a gun and shoot it down?
No. Property damage. I don't know.
Property
There are probably
What's
gun
the
laws.
eagle gonna do?
Pet it? I don't know.
Take it away? Like they're
Gun
never gonna
laws.
get their drone
For whatever
back.
reason, eagles apparently are more cost effective.
Like ravens.
Like ravens. No, I'm serious, people. Go Google if you're
What?
watching this. Drones, eagles, and there are some great pictures of eagles just like attacking drones midair. Anyway, let's do a couple of quick hits
That's
before
about as weird as parachuting elephants.
Does that happen?
Yes.
Where?
Google it. YouTube it. I don't know.
And Regina asks, are they making the show longer this season? Regina, probably. Liam Cunningham also, the guy who couldn't get his scripts, theorized that it'll probably be like an hour and a half each, but we don't know. I would bet there are. They're filming for an awful long time. One of the reasons they're filming for an awful long time is not really a reason, but one little snag is that Kit Harington and Rose Leslie, Jon Snow, we regret, getting married. Congrats. And I think Kit Harington appeared at the Jonathan Ross show and just said that he actually asked the producers, you have to shut down production for one day so the cast can come to the wedding.
Look at him setting a date, getting it done. Love it.
Right?
Yeah.
He's diving into this marriage thing.
These
mean,
people
why
who get
not?
engaged and they're like, oh, we haven't set a date, and then like 5 years go by and they're still engaged. I'm like, what are you doing?
Has that been a lot in your
I
experience?
don't know.
Okay, fair enough. But yeah, they're doing it.
Mostly on The Bachelor.
I've actually I can relate. They're not really in love. I just want to say it. They've been dating for a long time. They set a date. Why not? They're going to shut down production. Was kind of what he said. Again, but only for like a day. Like some people are saying like, oh, you can't do that. You'll delay the season more.
I mean, isn't it just like a weekend?
Yeah, it'll be for like a day, maybe 2 if they're all hungover the next day. So I wouldn't really.
Where are they from?
England?
I wonder where that wedding will be.
I don't know. I would imagine probably in England. They're both very, very British. They had like an official announcement in like one of those very hoity-toity British papers.
Cute.
I guess. It was like, Kit Harington, son of blah blah and blah blah Harrington
I love
is
that.
engaged to him. Yeah, it's kind of cool.
Traditional.
Fancy. Traditional. And again, they're both super, super English. So that works for them. We had that in America too, but not quite as common, I think.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's happening. Also, I want to ask you a quick question, Kayla. So there was a video that also went viral of Kit Harington pulling an April Fool's joke on his fiancée, Rose Leslie, where he put a severed prop head of himself in his refrigerator, a job you can only kind of get on Game of Thrones. And she opens it and just freaks the hell out.
We will never be able to pull pranks that great.
No, just you need to have access to special effects studios. Would you have found that funny or terrifying?
Terrifying, as she did. She screamed her head off,
She
dropped
just threw
her
it off.
Brita water, and freaked out.
So you would be terrified? You wouldn't find that
Yeah.
hilarious?
After the
How about
fact,
in
maybe.
retrospect?
Yeah, yes, in retrospect, yes.
Okay, good.
But she did not seem to care for it too much. The video
Exactly.
was kind of funny.
But they're still getting married, so good for them.
Yeah.
By the way, Daniel Smith asked, is there any news on the Game of Thrones prequel? Daniel Smith, we know that one of them has been written. The one by Jane Goldman, I believe. One of 5. So those are inching toward production. Finally, before we switch over, I want to mention that there is a new short story from George R.R. Martin out called Sons of the Dragon, about the 2 sons of Aegon Targaryen, Maegor and Aenys. It's in a fantasy anthology called The Book of Swords, out wherever books are sold. It'll be on Amazon and maybe your local bookstore. So if you want to go check that out, it's fun to check out. It's obviously it's not more Game of Thrones, not more Song of Ice and Fire, but it is set in that world, kind of set hundreds of years before the story. And it's new George R.R. Martin, so feel free to check that out. And speaking of books.
Cool.
I was proud of that transition. Speaking of books.
Speaking of books, this is where we part.
We part.
Dan, always a pleasure.
Indeed, I agree. Happy birthday, Julie. We're now going to switch over to a song of Dan and Josh, where Josh Hill and I go through another couple of chapters of A Game of Thrones. I've read the books, he hasn't. What insights will we have? Kayla, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks, Dan. See you next week. See you guys next week.
Have a good night.
All right.
Josh Hill, hi.
Stuart, hello.
Good to
Back
see you.
again.
Back again for our second week.
All right.
Regina Wycroft asked, are they making an anime? Are they making an anime of the history from 4 of the Dragons? I don't think so, Regina, but there is a pretty bitchin' Game of Thrones anime intro that was made out there. You should go check out, because it's, I don't know if you watch anime at all, Josh, but this is
I saw that.
That was
The
fun,
Game of
right?
Thrones
That was
one,
cute.
Yeah, that was a good one.
Thanks a lot. Okay, Julie says, hi, Josh.
Hello, Julie. Happy birthday.
Yeah. All right, Josh. So today we read 2 chapters. We did. Bran 1 and Catelyn 1. Our introductions to Bran and Catelyn. So I'll just dive right in. What, if anything, stood out to you from these?
For the Bran chapter, I had written down that I liked how it kind of sucked us into this world of Bran, which I thought was kind of funny because in the show I know that Bran had, the 3-eyed raven, and he can go and like occupy people's bodies, which
I mean,
was
that's quite a lot later.
Yeah, I mean, but it was just kind of funny to me that you are right away in Bran's point of view.
Oh, good call. Okay.
And he's a guy who can take other people's point of view. That was kind of interesting to me. I don't know if that's like a broader theme within the books. I just thought that was kind of a cool little Easter egg.
I was going to ask you about that, because I mean, the way the books are set up, I mean, I guess you've only had 2 chapters, so maybe you wouldn't know. They're all like that.
Yeah.
They're all point of view based. Like you'll be in Bran's head for one chapter, and then Catelyn's head for the next chapter. You'll be inside Ned's head. You'll be inside Tyrion's head. You'll be inside Cersei's head. That's a crazy place to be.
I don't know
You'll
if I want to be inside
Jaime's
Ned's head. I know what happens to Ned's head. I don't know if I want to be in there.
I don't think you're in his head when it gets chopped off. Are you? No, I don't think so.
That'd be wild. That'd be a trip.
So yeah, so that's what the books are set up. It's all point of view, and I think that creates some interesting differences.
Yeah.
For example, so in the Bran chapter, he goes to see this beheading, like every 7-year-old child does, and he's watching from a distance, and as his father chops off the head of this dude. Now, I went back and watched the version in the TV show. So Bran's there, but we actually get to hear what Ned and the prisoner talk about. Like, we can't do that here because it's Bran's perspective.
From
He's
Bran's
back.
perspective, yeah.
So, and there's a lot of that going on, where the show can kind of fill in these gaps that the book can't because we're limited to this person.
Yeah.
What do you think of that? Do you think that the show should have stayed closer to it, or do you like the possibility of intercutting?
I like the perspectives that we're taking from the two different chapters. I mean, I've only read the two, Bran and Catelyn, but I just really liked how different they were as from the show.
Right?
Because I feel like you get that there's a lot lost in removing the perspective angle from it on the show because it's much more of a cinematic thing, which I get because it's a different medium. But here I felt like there was more details. Like, I have a couple of notes written down for Catelyn about her relationship with Ned and how I got more invested into that. And you kind of got that on the show, but just having it from her perspective, I felt that maybe it's because I know what's happening to Ned too later on in the book. Or the show, I don't know what book this happened.
It happens. It all happens, don't worry.
But, you know, it's just I felt like I was invested more in her story with Ned and kind of that relationship and them going back and forth about Jon, not Jon Snow, but Jon Arryn?
Yes, Jon Arryn.
Jon Arryn.
Like the forgotten guy who starts this whole thing.
Yeah.
People forget.
And that, and like he's talking about Robert Baratheon and the Lannisters and all that, and I kind of really like the interplay there because I was in it, and it wasn't like, okay, now it's going to cut to this. It was like maybe, I guess you could say one long scene from the show, but it was just all there, and I really like that. And I like that with Bran too, kind of like what you said about the show and how you didn't hear what that guy who's poor Jared, however you say his name, the guy from the prologue.
What's his name? I forget now. I mean, I think on the show it's the younger guy, it's Will.
Yeah.
On the book it's the older, earless man named Garrett, I want to say.
Garrett.
I could be wrong, actually, I'm sorry.
It's Garrett with a G. I thought it was Jared with a G, but anyways, he's not around anymore.
That's this thing. It's take normal names but spell them dumb, and that's the Game of Thrones way.
But
no,
I like
it's not Kevin Lannister, it's Kevon.
Kevon Lannister.
K-E-V-A-N, they do that all the time.
No, I like that we didn't hear what he said though because it was Bran's perspective.
Yeah.
And I kind of like stories that are told that way where you don't get everything. So we're told as much as we can be told in the show for a narrative purpose because it's an hour-long episode and we need to know. But here I kind of liked it that we didn't hear what he was saying because Bran was a little farther away. And I think that also played into like a little theme in that chapter that Bran is very much the younger sibling, not only in age, but kind of like the way people take him seriously. It's like, oh, he's just he's the little brother. Except Ned kind of took him and was like, he was talking, I think it was about the execution. Like a man's only brave if he feels afraid.
Right.
And that's kind of like, again, giving me more perspective on Ned's character, and he's just kind of taking Bran under his wing. And I liked that.
I like it a lot too. And again, it's something I'm not sure you could do it on film. Like, because you have a camera. Like, you're going to have more than one person in the shot. You can't it's like do a first person thing the entire time. It doesn't make a lot of sense. But yeah, you can do this in a book where inside somebody's head and have access to all their thoughts, which you can't have unless you have like a cheesy voiceover thing.
Right.
In a show. And it's just different, and it's interesting, and it does make you more personal. Like, I really liked, I thought he did a good job of like putting you in the mind of a 7-year-old kid here. There are little lines that, again, like all you can do in a show, you can look at the actor, Adam Wright, who like looks like a little cherubic kind of kid, and it's good, and it works, and you're like, oh, he's a kid. But like in the book, you have these little, lines like, what do you say? It was a bit. He said he was trying to seem older than 7 because he's a little boy off to see a manly thing. He's trying to be cool for his big brothers. Ned loomed over him like a giant and something. A kid's perspective. You wouldn't, unless they like want to put the camera like here and like shoot up. It's just not going to get it.
Yeah.
Or his heart thumping in his chest as he approaches the dire wolves. So I thought it did a good job of like kind of putting you specifically in the shoes of this little kid who's having this big exciting day in a way that you couldn't get in a book, in a show rather.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it works. I think it works both ways for both mediums.
I also had dire wolves written down here because it was Bran's chapter that we got to meet. I'm assuming those are the dire wolves, right?
Yeah, those are the dire wolves.
So that was kind of cool to see that.
You surprised at all that Bran was the guy who kicked this whole off? That he's technically the first kind of a character we get into the head of. Other than the prologue where it's 3 dudes who die, Bran's the first guy we meet, we get into the head of.
I thought that, and then I remembered that the books and the show, they've kind of fractured at this point, and so I was kind of thinking, very briefly, maybe this is just me going off on some kooky fan theory, that Bran's importance later in the show, that I know how he's like the three-eyed raven and he's super important to all this, and people have he's the Night King theories and stuff like that. I found it interesting that they started with him, knowing, at least on the show, how important he becomes and how integral he is to figuring out the mystery of the White Walkers or the others here, you know, and like, I really like that they started the story with him. I think the show, the first thing that I noticed was Ned Stark, maybe because it was Sean Bean.
It's Sean Bean, he's the anchor.
Yeah, and this it threw me a little bit because I was expecting it to kind of follow that linear...
Right, no, yeah, I see what you're saying.
Like, to the show, and now we're all of a sudden in the mind of Bran, and then I'm thinking like Bran, and then the next chapter I'm like, oh, now I'm Catelyn. Now I'm thinking like Catelyn. Like you said, you can't do that with the show. You can't get inside of somebody's head like that, like you can in the book, and I felt like that really came across in a way that invested me in the characters more. And starting with Bran, maybe that means he's super important. George R.R. Martin was thinking ahead, but of course, in 1996 or 7, whenever he wrote this, he had no idea that HBO was going to be making the show. So,
well, no. But I mean, that's an open question, like how much he planned. I mean, I will say one of the things that struck me about these chapters, reading them back, was how much of the mythology was kind of packed in there, in an offhand way almost. Wait, Regina says, by the way, really quickly, seen it on Facebook, season 7 DVD, you get an anime. I think they've made like an animated featurette, Regina, to go with the season 7 DVD Blu-ray collection that kind of tells the story of Aegon's conquest. It's animated, I don't call it an anime, but it is on there. So season 7 DVD, enjoy that. What was I saying? Oh yeah, they had like lots of mentions of things that will become important, but you can't know that now. Like, what else did they mention? We got Mance Rayder got mentioned, who's the king of the Wildlings. We'll meet him. The Wildlings mentioned a bunch. The Children of the Forest, who are the guys that Bran hangs out with later, and he ruins everything, and Hodor dies, and they try to protect him. Valyrian Steel got a couple of mentions. You know, Ned has the big sword ice. And then later in the Catelyn chapter, she talks about the old gods, those creepy tree gods they worship, the faith of the Seven, and then later, you know, that's where the sparrows come from, and then present Cersei, and yada, yada, yada. Like, those are all really important elements, and they're just kind of dropped. They're just kind of like, dropped right in there without any comment. And I really liked that. I thought I don't know how far ahead he was looking. I really don't. I think he said he doesn't really plan everything. He kind of has the broad strokes of it. But the foundation is all there.
Yeah.
And I thought it was just effective. And it's like, looking back, I was surprised at how much was packed in here. How about you?
Yeah, I like that. I felt that it wasn't like over-explaining the mythology.
No, it didn't at all.
Just kind of like in the prologue where he was like really elaborate with explaining the costumes and everything like that, and it kind of drew you in that way. I felt like then, juxtaposing that to like just dropping in the mythology, like this world exists. This is just what it is. Yeah. It's not like, oh wow, this is a new thing that I have to have all this exposition for. It was just like, no, yeah, Valyrian Steel, Children of the Forest, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh yeah, sure. Like, to me, I was like, and again, because I've seen the show, I was like, oh, I recognize that, which maybe kind of settled me in more. But if I hadn't seen the show, I still would have been like, oh, this is just a thing. This is not, I guess you could say,
you would have like read it, then you would have maybe, I think if you were for the first time, you maybe just wouldn't have thought too much about it. Just you hear the name Mance Rayder, and maybe it gets in there, and then when he comes back, you're like, oh.
Exactly. It's this like planting these little seeds, and then they're going to sprout later on in the story. So,
which is nice.
I liked that. And the world building, I think, is a word that you used in the notes that you sent to me.
Yeah, a lot of world.
I really appreciated that.
But again, it's world building. It's not obvious that it's world building.
Exactly.
It's kind of very quietly doing it, which is, I think, really, really cool.
Oh yeah.
Okay, what else do we got here? Any other thoughts about the Bran chapter? I did want to note that, I'll say it. Medieval norms asserting themselves, Josh. Like, I noticed that Sansa and Arya aren't there.
Yep.
Arya would love to see a guy beheaded. Like, you can picture that, right? Yeah. Of course she would. Even before she goes crazy. So just this idea that even though Ned is portrayed as a good father, and I think he is a good father, he is part of this society. Yeah. And in this society, you don't bring your daughters to beheadings.
He adheres to the norms very much.
Stuff like that. And, he says Robb's going to be king. So it's the first son becomes king.
Yep.
Jon Snow is a bastard, and he's, that's the way he thinks about, that's the way he's treated. So I think they're kind of layering in, not a complex character so much, but it's just a character who actually lives in a world with these kind of restraining rules, which I think becomes important later.
I did like, too, that they kind of established this darker theme of death, which I know comes up later in the show. But again, going back to the perspective, like you said, we're reading this through the mind of a 7-year-old kid, and there's Robb and Jon being like, I wonder what this guy was thinking right before he got his head chopped off. And it's like, oh, he was scared. Oh, no, he was brave. And it's just like, oh, wow.
I like that stuff, too. Because, again, I think they also did a good job of, establishing who these people are pretty quickly. And I thought that they were all kind of stuck to who we know them to be. Theon's kind of... There's that part that was not in the show where Theon, kicks the severed head, away. I was like, they didn't put that in the show.
I don't know why not. I mean, it fits right in, but...
I went and rewatched it. It was a very somber scene. Yeah. I guess they didn't want to break it with some humor, is my guess.
Yeah.
And, Jon's, broody and saying, I'm not a Stark, I'm a bastard. So he's, got that inferiority complex already going.
Oh, I 1,000% read the book in the voice of the characters.
You think so?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was listening to Jon Snow talking. Although it's not first season Jon Snow, I'd have to go back and listen to how he was talking. It's definitely Jon Snow that we just saw on the show. So he's talking in this really grizzled, dark voice about, he was afraid. And I was like, oh God.
I watched it. He was all clean shaven back then. It's weird to look at. Do you see them in the roles when you're reading them now? Do you see Sean Bean when Ned Stark is reading, talking?
Yeah, I do. I don't necessarily picture them exactly as they were on the show, I don't think. Because it's just kind of a blending together of the different versions of them.
I will say one thing. Were you surprised by the fact that the ages are different? Bran on the show is 10. He's 7 here.
Yeah.
Robb and Jon are both 14 here. They are not 14 on the show. No. And Ned Stark is 35, or Sean Bean, looks like 40s, 50s.
35, yeah.
What do you think of that?
Bran's age didn't really throw me as much as Jon and Robb's age did, which didn't really take me out of it too much.
They're middle schoolers.
Yeah, and I was just like, all right, because I was still picturing them like I saw them in the first season of the show.
Right.
So I guess the age was kind of arbitrary.
No middle schooler looks like Kit Harington on the back of a horse. Down people.
I wish I looked like Kit Harington when I was in middle
14.
School.
I don't know. That would have been kind of weird. You would have been way taller than everybody else.
It would have been. I don't know. But the ages didn't really throw me off that much.
All right, fair enough. But I think there's a little wrinkle. Okay, let's talk about. I do want to say one really quick thing. I think the perspective thing helps the book in a lot of later sections. In season 5 when Cersei is. It's after Tywin dies and she's controlling everything and she's queen and she's dealing with the High Sparrow and Marjorie. I thought those scenes were okay, but they're so much better in the books because you're inside her head and her head is a crazy, unpleasant place where she's a lot of rage and paranoia and it's just so much more fun. So I think I'm curious to get to that section and see what you think about it. All right, anything about the Catelyn Ned scene that jumped out at you?
Yeah, just kind of circling back to what I was saying about the perspectives, being invested in Catelyn and Ned's relationship a little bit more. And it was definitely from Catelyn's perspective, but I felt I learned more about Ned. And so if there's exposition anywhere, I felt it was in that second chapter when we're learning about...
It was a quick little one.
Yeah, we're learning about Robert Baratheon and Jon Arryn. We have our first introduction to the Lannisters.
We learned about, they mentioned, House Words. They mentioned, the North is different. That thing gets introduced there, which is will become important later.
Yeah, so, whereas, Bran's chapter dropped in subtle mythological exposition, this very much was geographical, where I was learning about all of Westeros. I've got, King's Landing, and I'm learning about the Baratheons and, the different lords and the different houses and stuff like that. And definitely the relationship that Ned and Catelyn have to the Baratheons versus the Lannisters.
It was clear.
So that line in the sand was drawn right away. And I got that in the show, too. But I did feel here, just from Catelyn's perspective and hearing the pain in Ned's voice and all that kind of stuff at the death of Jon Arryn, I learned more in the book. Maybe I wasn't paying attention in the show. I'm sure they mentioned this kind of stuff, but just how important he was to Ned.
I mean,
as like a father figure. I felt it more in the book than I did on the show.
That's good. I mean, yeah, John Aaron is he's like the MacGuffin that starts everything. It's kind of easy to forget just because you never actually see him, and things spiral so quickly in another direction. But yeah, he's an important figure, and I'm glad it landed for you. I will say, again, I thought that he did a good job of, yes, he's giving this information, but he's doing it in a way that's kind of grounded in her character. Like, he's giving you information about the splits in geography. Like, the North is different, she's from the South, and she kind of feels like an outsider here.
Yeah.
But it's based in, like, her unease. Like, I'm from the South, I feel weird in this Godswood. And you're getting her emotion at the same time as you're getting information about how Westeros works.
Yeah.
Which I think is pretty effective and cool.
And I did feel sympathetic towards Catelyn, because we are kind of entering from her perspective, literally and figuratively, in that we don't know know about any of this.
That's a good
we're
point.
also
Like,
outsiders.
We're a 7-year-old who's an outsider to a beheading, and then we're a southern lady who's an outsider to this whole northern falderall.
Yeah, and so I'm definitely sympathizing with her, and it also, to me, helped the exposition land more, where it wasn't like, here's a map of Westeros and all this kind of stuff. It was like, you're definitely, like, she's from the South and all this kind of stuff, and you're learning the perspective, and I really liked that. So, again, George R.R. Martin with the layers.
Yeah, I mean, it's good. It's well done. I have one other thing just wanted to point out. So, you know where this is going. You know the Lannisters are going to show up. You know they're going to push Bran out of a window. I'd forgotten this, that our first kind of mention of the Lannisters is basically Ned doesn't like them.
Yep.
There was small love between Ned and Cersei's family. Catelyn knew the Lannisters of Casterly Rock had come late to Robert's cause when victory was all but certain, and he had not forgiven them. I just liked that the Lannisters are pretty complex people. By now I can say that. But I mean, if I had just reading them here, yeah, I mean, they're set up as antagonists. They're set up as dicks and just mean, nasty people. And I mean, they are, but 6 seasons in, we know there's more to it. And we know that Tyrion's complex and Jaime's complex, and even Cersei, as bad as she is, has her complexities. But here, we're seeing them just from Ned's perspective or Catelyn's, and they're bad. So I thought that was interesting.
That's why I'm really excited to get into the chapters about Cersei and Tyrion and Jaime, who I really like on the show. And just, to get their perspective. Now that it's been set up, like the table's been set very clearly that the Lannisters are bad, the Baratheons and the Starks are the good guys, and we like them. And I'm sure we're going to learn, I don't know how many different people we go into, like if we go into Stannis.
I will say this, the first, well, I guess I'll keep it a mystery for you because we're going to read it together, but the first book, he adds more folk as it goes on. Like the first book, I think it's like 6 or 7 people, and then it keeps growing and growing and growing. And by the 5th book, we're like, we need to kill some of these people, which is a whole other issue. Any other thoughts, Josh?
No, I had the Lannisters are not my favorite family as established in this chapter, but also just
because
in reality.
again, like these good people are telling you it. Why wouldn't you believe them?
Right.
And they're the only perspective you have on it.
And we just came from Bran's chapter where we're hearing it from Ned, who has already been established as this trusting fatherly figure.
As a good father figure.
So this is a guy we can trust. I trust Ned's word. It's not like, we hear Cersei say something on the show and we're like, I think she's being sincere, but I'm not sure. Here it's very much, yes, this is Bran's father. We trust him. I like this guy. And what he's saying is gospel, and I'm going with it.
It's kind of, and we know that part of Jaime's whole deal is that everyone hates him for killing the king, even though it was a noble act.
Yeah.
That he has a bad reputation. And this is the reputation, here it is. Like, this is the way people see him.
Yeah.
And we're going to see him that way. I think part of the fun of the books, and the story in general, but the books especially, is that you can't always trust that. That there are other reasons behind this. And that's why the point of view structure kind of gives it a tension that you just can't get on the show.
Yeah, I'm excited to keep reading these chapters and find out what's next.
All right, I think next week we should read one chapter, the first Daenerys chapter.
Ooh,
and
very exciting.
Yeah, check out what she's like in the book and her gross brother who's still alive. So please join us next week, Wednesday, 4 p.m. Central Standard Time. We're going to have more Game of Thrones news. We're talking about some Fire news, maybe a bit of a look into the Game of Thrones casting process, because we get questions about that all the time. And Josh and I will read and discuss the first Daenerys chapter in A Game of Thrones on A Song of Dan and Josh.
I wonder what a literary hero shot looks like. I want to read that. I want to see it.
I don't think he would approve of those.
No.
Martin is very big on keep it realistic and it's like the point is there are no heroes, not really. So I don't know him though. I suspect he would say like, guys, cut it out.
No. Oh well, we'll see.
We will next week at 4 Central on Wick Live.
All right.
Adios.